Mental health, a conversation whose time has come. Discuss.
So I'm Global Inclusion Leader for Deloitte. We are over 300,000 people around the world in 150 countries, and we only have our people. So, we have some very clever IP but actually it's about people and it's about engaged people, happy people. Mental health has long been an issue. Prior to my global role, I had a role where I was leading talent in the UK for 6 years. And that was around 18,000 people, and mental health was a big priority for us for that 6-year period. And we embarked on a big change journey. In my global role, there is some, what I saw was there's some incredible things being done, but actually the pandemic showed us very quickly that there was no consistency. We publish a millennial survey every year, and last year, fortuitously, we put very detailed questions in there on mental health. Now, this survey goes out to 18,000 people across multiple countries, and it's really just trying to gauge, where are millennials and Generation Z, what are their concerns and their worries. And the mental health findings were really stark, and almost half millennials and Generation Zs feel stressed or anxious most of the time. It is their number one or number two priority in life. The only thing that beats it is their physical health. So that's over and above, all the things they're thinking about that as priorities. Mental health is really high up there. And when you look at what contributes to that, it is things, as you would understand, it's climate, the environment, financial stability, family welfare, all of those things. But there are two things in particular in there that are very much, I believe, within the gift of the employer to do something about. And the first one is work-life balance. The second one is the inability to be one's true, authentic self. Now, that's despite all the efforts of businesses for many, many years on diversity and inclusion. I say this as someone that's passionate about this and has led a lot of change around it, but clearly it's not enough. And then I'd say the final piece of data, which is absolutely very depressing, again, is around stigma. And, whilst quite a large number of the respondents said that they did believe that stress and anxiety was a genuine reason to take time off work, which obviously is great, a number of them gave a completely different reason for it. And that brings us to the, to stigma and workplace culture. So now more than ever, it's needed. We're all living through, here, I think this is our third lockdown. And, I'm living in a home. I've got a very busy job. I work very long hours. And it's very easy to become completely overwhelmed. I have 2 children, homeschooling in different parts of the house. I've got a husband that works. I've got unruly pets. I've got, I have to feed everybody. It's all of that stuff that it's very easy. And interestingly, yesterday, I personally got to the point where I said, right, I'm stopping for 4 hours. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to just spend a bit of time just thinking, and I feel so great today. And so, it's all of these things that I think we need to be mindful of. If I'm feeling like this, everybody's, this is what we're all going through at the moment. And I think it's the responsibility of employers, and particularly the leaders. If you think about that stigma data, who sets the tone in an organisation? It's the leader. And that's really the rationale for the GBC, the Global Business Collaboration on Better Workplace Mental Health. It's a very long name, hence why we call it GBC. And that's really the aim of the GBC, was to say, look, we're better together, we're better collaborating. We are large global businesses that we can make a difference here. And actually, we've got a lot we need to do. And then why don't we also share our knowledge and our understanding with others, whether you're a teeny tiny business in one country, whether you're a larger business in multiple countries. And that's really the aim of it. It's been a lot of work to set it up, and it's been a real passion of all of the founding partners. And we're really determined to make a difference.
You talk about the research with the millennials and the Gen Zs. if you were to do the same research with the boomers and the Gen Xers, I mean, I'm almost terrified about what you would find.
Look, that is a really good question. I've been waiting for someone to ask me that question for about 6 months. I've always said, look, I think I was a millennial before my time. I really cared. I worry about the environment. I worry about all these things. I always have done. I've always wanted to be my true authentic self. I've always wanted work-life balance. I think in my generation, I'm X, I think, Generation X, and when I came up through the workplace, you just couldn't talk about this. I mean, the stigma was so huge, and I remember, various moments in my career, particularly one time in particular where it got to the point where I had a really full-on period of non-stop working. I had a huge project. I had real worries and concerns about it, and I literally ran out of the building crying. And a sort of little mini meltdown, which actually in hindsight was much needed, but would have been better dealt with if I'd been able to have a conversation with somebody 5 weeks before that to say, look, I'm really worried. I just this is all becoming too much. And so I think, I think we all have the same anxieties. I think we all worry. We all do get stressed and anxious. As you know, mental health is on a spectrum. I think at the moment there are probably more people being exposed to stress and anxiety than ever before because of what we're going through. And I think those survey findings would be just as relevant with the other generations, to be honest, if not worse.
How important is it for everyone, for people my age and, between 30 and 40, as well as 20 to 30, to have this conversation, to have an uncomfortable conversation in many places?
I think it is really important. And this is one of the things that, when it comes to GBC, this is one of the reasons why we've got leaders signing the pledge and why, we want people to talk about it. And, when you look at, our pledge, it talks around, promote an open culture around mental health. I think it's the second. It's a very simple pledge. It's not really detailed. It's just very simple things that a leader can commit to, and really, I hope they will commit to. In the millennial survey data, one of the interesting things we looked pre-pandemic, and then, obviously the pandemic happened. So we did a pulse survey during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Now, we expected to see that stress and anxiety levels would go massively up during the pandemic. They didn't across the board. However, they did massively, or fairly significantly, I should say, actually, increase for women and working parents. It's the only way we start getting, we start doing something about the stigma, is to have these conversations and for leaders to be open about their own challenges.
When the more research I read, the more we see that the more companies embrace emotional intelligence and mental health, that investment is always paid back 1,000%. And actually what we end up with, if we embrace this, is a more productive, happier workforce that thus impacts the bottom line, and you as a company actually make more money and are more profitable because you've invested in mental health. Has that been the Deloitte experience, and is that part of the founding principle of the GBC?
Absolutely. Again, it comes back to culture, it comes back to workplace environment, and you can have one that's toxic, or you can, and that's typically, that's where a leader may behave in a certain way because that's the leadership they may be experienced, or you can have one that is, very open, inclusive. And I think it's down to everyday actions. I think a lot of organizations will have the right policies, and they will have things in place that almost feel a bit box ticky, but it's down to what people actually experience in the moment. So when they're in a meeting, when they're talking to colleagues, are they treated with respect or disrespect? Are they heard or ignored? All of those things set the tone and the culture.